Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to a brand new school year, if we can believe it. Um, for this month's webinar, I have invited Yvette Regalado, who is now a doctoral candidate at Texas State University and is doing great work in the realm of culturally sustaining pedagogies and everything. And as we are finalizing syllabi for the new school year, this may be a great refresher for folks. So we hope that you will find it useful. So Yvette, I will hand it over to you.
Excellent. So thank you for coming. One great thing about this time and this before the school year starts, I think, is for us to look at our syllabi. And I think because they're such a living document that you can never do one copy and then never revisit again, right? Like syllabi, we always can take a peek back at it, and it's nice to look at it with a different perspective, a different objectives, especially in the views of how can my students have access more to the information that I'm doing, right? Sometimes there is a notion that students don't really use syllabi a lot, but if we make them more friendly or student-centered or easier access to students, then the research is showing that they would be more engaged, right? So this students view syllabi as almost an extension of your pedagogy. And so that's why we're taking a look at what our syllabi says from a perspective of students-centered lens. So first, I want to take a moment and I wanted to thank my ancestors. I wanted to thank all who walked before me. I acknowledge your struggles, your oppression, and your untold stories. Mi familia, I see you, and your counter stories are my counter stories. Thank you for paving my way. Your fight, your tenacity, and your ability not to quit has given me this opportunity. I hear you, see you, and you belong. And also let me know if my internet gets unstable, so I'll turn off my screen. So our agenda first is to do a check-in for our summer vibe. And then we're going to talk about the components of Cariño, some small group sessions. We're going to think about an equity scorecard and then be reflective in our thinking and what can we take away from this workshop, right? Even though we might see a lot of things we want to do, in reality, if we walk away with 1 to 2 things we can take away from today, that would be great. When we talk about student reviews, there's the Austin Community College that does a 10-month project in review for syllabi. There's workshops that are for a week long, for 4 hours long. So this workshop is actually only an hour long. So we're really trying to do big impact in little ways. So as you can see, there's numbers to each of these memes. If you could drop in the chat what your summer vibe is for today. Oops, go back. Sorry, everybody. So I have a lot, right? Some people are coming back to work in a week. Some people are coming back in 2 weeks. And so maybe that's why we're seeing a lot of ones. I was just getting access to my Canvas sites an hour before this started, so I feel you. So then as we work on our syllabus review, what we want to think about is the why. Why do I want to look at my syllabus? I am trying to work on all these things, but why do I need to refocus and look at the big picture and look at the intersectionalities of my syllabus? And the reason is that marginalized students can feel like they don't belong in the classroom if they don't see themselves in the curriculum, right? Explicitly or explicit feelings that one's life or experience, histories, or knowledge are not valued if the students don't see them in the curriculum or even in the syllabus, right? And a syllabus is an extension of what the students should be seeing in their curriculum. And some guided questions that's going to lead us in today's workshop. How can we reimagine and redesign our syllabi with a non-deficit course assignments, expectations, and goals? And after this webinar, how can we purposely design lessons with students' existing resources, knowledge, and enhancing their learning in a post-secondary context? So as we're thinking about reviewing our syllabi, we're going to be thinking about it through a Cariño pedagogy lens, which is a three-prong space, which includes culturally responsive, culturally sustainable pedagogy, critical care from the instructor's point of view, and an equity literacy. And when we take a deeper dive into what Cariño pedagogy is, it's authentic cariño, which is that critical care. So educators with heartfelt care, fostering students' moral, social, and academic and personal development, right? So we're not just saying we're doing them emotionally or socially, but we're also saying that we're getting them that academic rigor that they need to be successful in the classroom. It anchors in components of familia, being the intelligence and critical care, empowering expressions of caring that created at an additive school environment, and it benefits underserved, cultural, racial, and linguistic diverse students in their educating learning spaces. It grounds students' learning in social justice, incorporates equity consciousness, it impacts students' communities, and it fosters students' big ideas using cultural and community practices. So as we think about Cariño and what it is, the big picture is it's student-centered. So student-centered is centering that students are knowledge creators and not just knowledge consumers. And I think sometimes when we think about the outcomes and the big objectives in our courses, sometimes we can get caught up into like, they need to get this, they need to do that. And we sometimes might forget that they're already coming in with all of their assets and all of their knowledge and all of their wonderful experiences and everything that makes them unique, right? And so Cariño Pedagogy really starts with that, really starting on changing the language, changing the forefront, that when the students enter the classroom, that their culture is affirmed, that they're thinking about their thinking, that there's differentiating learning practices, and that they are the their knowledge creators. Again, going to that there is active knowledge making, right? So it's not just reading and responding, but creating from what they're reading, right? And it's not them just sitting at a desk and hearing a lecture and being isolated learners, but they're collaboratively learning. And it's not just a one size fits all learning environment. So now we're going to do a Jamboard activity. So in the chat, I'm going to drop in a link. And if you guys can get in there with the Jamboard. And so I'm going to put you, oh, you can't access it? Let me see.
Uh, we just need to verify our name and password, I guess. Oh, it says
Let
you need
me
access.
change.
Request
Okay,
access.
let me see. Let me change the settings. Can you exit now? Okay, excellent. So I think what we could do is just go into 2 breakout rooms, and we are going to, it's just a dropping the comments for acid base and for deficit mindset, and then thinking, is there something that we didn't include in this list that we could include? Is there a different perspective? And so we're just going to do 5 minutes of this exercise. And then, so group 1 will do page 1 and group 2 would do page 2.
Okay. Yvette, I'm creating the breakout rooms.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Does anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay, good. Okay. Who wanted to report? Or Stacy? Was that you, Stacy?
No, I said Dr. Chavez did a good job, so she should do it, you know?
Okay, Dr. Chavez.
Where'd she go? Oh, she's.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say, I would need to be looking at the jumbo board. You have it in front of you. Why don't you go, Stacy? She has it in front of her. I don't have it in front of me.
Go
I
for
would
it.
be glad to.
So
But
we were on
basically, yeah.
Go for it.
So basically, as you know, we focus on acid base and deficit base. And under acid base, we looked at the strengths and abilities of the students. We focus on students' funds of knowledge, their existing knowledge of, various languages, culture and community resources. We also look at the real world purpose and value and affirm their, culture, their community. And we look to incorporate that into the curriculum if at all possible. Asset base is rooted in equity and justice in education, and it focuses on being inclusive and reflective of the language and culture of the students. And it really focuses on empowering them to feel comfortable enough to change their circumstances. And asset base is student center, focuses on the student first, and makes students, even those in developmental education, see their strengths, and it adapts to new environments. Of course, when we are focusing on deficits, we're looking at what students cannot do, whether they're not in the regular, courses. And we don't really kind of value the social and cultural capital that they bring to the equation. So we do not want to be that way, definitely. And basically we want to be able to find ways to incorporate the good things that students bring to the table. When you're deficit based, you basically concentrate on the stereotypes and stigmas of those students. You focus on your traditional ways of teaching without being open-minded about how to do it differently, or letting students be part of the conversation versus you being the one that tells them what is. And typically deficit based focuses on these are the standards and that's it. Whereas the opposite looks at how you take those that situation and make it more positive. Something like that. I have a hard time reading, so tiny. I think you
Thank you so much.
did what we talked about,
Yes. And again, I think I'm going to move to my PowerPoint. The reason why, even though I know a lot of us could do this with our eyes shut, is that when I was doing my a literature review in development education, a lot of the research currently and still with instructors' vocabulary and the way researchers are still discussing development students in development education in a deficit language, right? And so that's something that I think we just need to be, we just always need to bring to the table of reminding ourselves to be mindful of how we talk about the students in the classes that we serve. Let me see. Okay. So thank you for that, Dr. Chavez. For equity syllabus scorecard, I'm going to give you a document that is a really great and a beautiful document. It's normally 28 pages, but I'm not giving us the whole page because it will be really distracting and we only have 15 minutes to do the activity and you're gonna just spend the 15 minutes looking at everything, and it's a really powerful syllabus audit. They have it, I think, in like Harvard has it on their website. A lot of the big universities use this equity syllabus review. And so we're going to use a few of those pages for a language, just to check the language in our syllabus. Again, if you want the whole document, I will give you the document at the end of the workshop, but when I was given it, I was spent more than 15 minutes on it. And then that way we can just focus on the part that we're going to apply during this workshop and then discuss, and then later we can go and read through the whole thing. So we think about an equity syllabus scorecard. It's wanting us to really evaluate the language that we're using, right? Because these syllabus are living documents. And when students read it, they read, even though there's institutional language that we use and academic language that are required from the campus, they still view us, it's still a representation or of what our pedagogy is going to look like. So there should be specific things that we can do in our syllabi to change that and be more student-centered, right? So when we're thinking about these documents, it's thinking about our language, thinking about the tone that's used throughout the whole syllabi, welcoming versus authoritative, welcoming students into the classroom, putting that unity back into community, and then demystifying the norms and complex processes, right? Like if they don't know, if you're dealing with if you're teaching students who are first year or first semester of the campus, and you know, always have a link maybe to where they can go for printing, or even just links to things that they might not have access for. Validating students' belongingness and their ability to succeed, affirming minoritized students' lived experience and interest in the curriculum, and then students can represent their knowledge in multimodal ways, right? So we want to give students multiple ways to express their genius. And so in this chat, I'm going to upload this document. It's like halfway downloaded or uploaded. And again, this is a
Te estoy un poquito cagadita, mamá. It's okay. I want an abuelita like you, Ana.
okay, and then the document is uploaded. Does everybody have access to it?
I'm trying to open it. It's a.
Okay, and again, while we are going in, we're gonna go into small groups too. And it's just, you're gonna have 5 minutes of reading this. You can skim through it, 5 minutes of reading through these things. And here's an example of the actual lesson. And then here's some reflective, right here. And it's not writing, you don't have to write, but this is just like talking areas. So when you get to here, think about in your syllabus, how could you demystify some of the norms, right? What else could you do? And then when you get to this section, that's where you can talk out. So we're gonna have 10 minutes of talking out. If you could pull up your syllabus, that would be great. Or if you just want to write down areas that you know that you can go back. Does anybody have any questions? So there's gonna be 5 minutes of reading and then 10 minutes of talking back with your small groups of like ideas. And then there is I have some questions. I'll put these in the chat in case you're wondering what you can talk about. So in your breakout groups, questions you can ask each other is what areas can you incorporate in your syllabus? What areas are you already doing? What areas are you still needing to support to conceptualize? Okay, and if Erin, if you could put everybody back in groups, thank you. And I'm starting the timer for 15 minutes. Or no, just how like I really appreciate everybody's right, like talking about barriers that we even have in our own spaces. Okay, thank you guys for I think we have so I really appreciate the feedback or the conversations that I was witnessing, and I want to see if there's anybody who wants to share out anything that was discussed in their groups.
I can share from our group.
Okay.
And it, it may have come up in your other group because Caroline and I are at the same institution, but our syllabus, we have a tool called Simple Syllabus, and it's like a very narrow box that we have to fit things in. And, the room to do things like demystifying and welcoming, and it's like there's no space for that kind of thing, or maybe but I was thinking that the Canvas shell, which is our learning management system, is exactly where that kind of thing happens. It's got an orientation module. And I like the idea that Dr. Chavez said I could even do a handout, kind of old-fashioned sort of print of the sort of course description with a lot of the kind of welcoming type of language and description that's demystifying. Rather than the syllabus it's got a lot of very official policies and things from the college policies and the district stuff. And then I need to look at my policies because they do, they've become these very rigid things over years. maybe the syllabus is not where a lot of this kind of stuff can happen, at least for me. So that's from our group.
Mhm. I think in a way you have like a twin syllabi. For example, in our case, for our seminars, we have a very rigid syllabi that had to be approved by the faculty senate at UT Austin. And so we had to comply to that. On the other hand, what we do is when we do the seminars, which is really the implementation of the syllabi, we have an agenda. And within the agenda, we have the welcoming activities, the emphasis on cariño and the like, dealing with the practice of. So in a way, the syllabi is the letter of the law kind of thing. And the actual implementation is where we show the heart of, the program, or, that's where you get the spirit of, what we're trying to accomplish. So, we've always had like the dual documents. I like that his Canvas would allow him to put a lot of that information online. I think that's the way to go, because students are going to be checking that. But then for those that may not necessarily do that, do have some of the hard copies of certain things, just to make sure the message gets across. So that's where we were, torn between what must be by law, and then by, the institutional requirements, and then what we want to do. So that's what
I
our
love that.
committee talked about,
How about the next group?
I will comment on our group. We talked about the same thing that Lenny's talking about, because at our institution, we also have concourse, which is basically we go in and just fill out our outline, course outline, and it's very limited. Everything's already done. I do a visual syllabus on the side for my courses, where I put the percentages in a little pie, and I put the 4 major essays for 1301. Very user-friendly. I put quotes, I do, and it's a 1-page thing with little visuals that helps the students understand the components of the course in a more simplified manner than the 11-page concourse syllabus that we have. So yeah, and I'm revamping it again because I'm changing policies and stuff. But there was very in what we read, there was simple little, I welcome you to come during my office hours, versus where it's
Right.
welcoming, non-welcoming.
Right.
So very simple steps on how to make our syllabi welcoming. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that document, Yvette.
Yeah, I remember someone was saying, I don't use office hours. I call them student hours. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do that. You know what I mean? And then so I changed the lingo on mine, and I was like, and like everybody really, we all spent a good amount of just changing that intro verbiage, right? That little something, because there is a lot of parts that they're not going to even look at, but like making sure when you introduce yourself, being more real and connecting someone. I think in this one, or also if it was more than an hour long, I wanted to include an activity that was surrounded Allegra's article. I don't know if you saw, she just posted in Lincoln. And she also did a syllabi one after me. So it was just coinciding they were all doing the syllabi activity. But I also wanted to include some of the things that she had in her article, which is like hyperlinks, right? So if they're at the beginning, she had a bar and there were some links that the students could just click on, and it would show them like grades or readings or assignments. I thought that was a really nifty idea, right? On making it more accessible. And a lot of something that she said in her article was that she would tell them like, yeah, she told him a little bit of her story, right? And demystifying college. Like her journey was not straight from high school to university, right? And so how important it is to do and be authentic in those little opportunities that we have are really powerful. Because we might say it in class. Go ahead, Erin.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I think that on the whole, so much of our program is focused on sort of breaking down hidden curriculum issues for students, but like I think there is something to be said about like we take for granted what a syllabus actually is. So like even on the first day of school or the first day of someone's class, like if you hand them a syllabus, they may not even really realize what you're handing them. And so in that case, like I love the idea of having this sort of like supplemental, like more like graphically oriented document like what Anna is talking about as just like one. I think that brings in other types of learning styles and just visually speaking something that can be very like summative, like you know, quick snapshot of what it is that they're doing. But I think it is like important to even say like this is a syllabus and to not and I think just being able to say like this is something that you can expect from students. I love the idea of talking about a syllabus as a living document. You know, in a lot of ways, it's been talked about as like a contract between faculty and students. You know, something that I put in my syllabus is I have my expectations of students, but I also line up like what students should be able to expect of me as the instructor. And I hope that that calls in like a process of this is a partnership. And if I'm not holding myself to like a certain amount of responsiveness or if I'm not meeting your needs, then you have the right to let me know that.
That's a great point. I really like what you said. To give them the power to also give you feedback and to guide you on how to tweak it to help them learn better.
And I would say something that I put on mine that this was not my original idea, admittedly, but like with the syllabus language, like I have a statement that says, you know, if you feel like you're struggling in the class, then like this is what you can do. But also if you feel like you're not challenged enough, then this is what you can do.
Right.
Yes.
That's
And
an
then,
excellent point. Yeah.
you know, I love that. Yes. Like I said,
Remember,
it's really
Yvette,
hard to do a survey. Huh?
no, I was going to say,
you hear me?
Yvette, when we did the site visit to San Antonio College, we had a great example of how do you meet the needs of students at different levels. And I really love what David Chavira, he had some students that were like really just beginning to understand math. And then you had others that were already at the algebra level and they were both groups were working independently, but yet within the same classroom. And my thought was the only way that he was able to make it work is because of the patience and cariño and kind of flexibility that he was exhibiting, you know? And some of the other math teachers that were with me were saying, wow, we can do that. So I think that's a great point. You know, how do you meet the needs of those that are struggling versus those that are not challenged enough? You know, I think that's something good to acknowledge. I like what Erin said. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And then, so I knew we were going to run out of time, but our last segment, because the syllabi is just, it's a beautiful creation that we could, you know, like I said, ACC actually has a 10-month program about them dissecting the syllabi. There's week-long programs, 8-hour programs, 4-hour programs, and we're squeezing everything into an hour. So if you see this link to a Google document, I wanted us to have something that we could take away from today. So Let me show you that. Because we have so many amazing people here, I wanted to give us a resource. There it is. I want us to give us a resource, and this is slide 17. In your breakout group, we're not going to do a breakout group because we ran out of time. Share out what things you are doing well. Like, is there, okay, I think it's supposed to be. So anyways, what inclusion or what text do you include in your syllabus that are marginalized, that are from marginalized writers? Like if you could put one example of that, something that you do, just so we have a list. What if someone's looking for a really great read from a diverse writer and they just need a new idea? So if everybody can put like maybe their favorite or something they want to suggest in that space, I think that would be really great. Also, if you could put what lessons do you do that connect to students' experience or interest? So like for me, it's counter storytelling, artifact writing, right? So whichever thing that you can, if everybody can contribute to one thing on here before we go, so that people have just some fresh ideas that they can look about, right? Because there's so much power in collaboration. And then the next question is, how do students get to express their culture and linguistic knowledge in their classroom? And how do you support your students as being experts and knowledge makers? So you don't have to do all of them, but if you could pick one and give an opportunity, and yes, you can fix my sentences. I've just had a busy, crazy day. We would appreciate that.
Just to get it on the recording as people are thinking about this, I just want to plug next month's webinar. We will be having award-winning author Sergio Troncoso, who is a writer from El Paso and has been a scholar mentor of Catch the Next, a supporter of Catch the Next for many years now. He will be highlighting his new book, and part of what is really exciting is that he has given us permission to also distribute a teaching guide for that. So, for everyone, please make sure that you join us. It will be on September the 21st from 3 to 4 p.m.
Exciting.
Did you want us to start putting a few things in the Google Doc now?
Yes, please.
Okay.
So we have about 3 minutes. Dr. Chavez, would you like to say anything else as everybody finishes off their end reflection? I am so sorry that we didn't have enough time to reflect. Hopefully within this space, everybody was able to connect.
No, I think this is a wonderful, wonderful session to really force us to stop and look at, what we have, what we're using and what would be the ideal, not just the ideal document, but what are the ideal messages that we want to be able to convey to our students, and what can we do so that they're not just words? How do we then take those words and put them into practice? Because somewhere along the session, you talked even about tone. Sometimes we may say certain words, but maybe the tone is not the most conducive to responses. Maybe when I'm saying it too quickly, or as though I'm rushed for time. Therefore, a student may pick up on that and they may not bother to go ahead and really say what they're thinking, because they may still be exploring. So I think there are multiple steps that we would need to take to get to where we want to be in terms of how we want the students to feel, and really to make them feel like they belong, to make them feel engaged. And from all the literature, we know that the more they feel that way, the more likely they are to succeed. So, yeah, so, that's basically, I think it's a great start. I think it's like 50% of the work. just getting a sense of what it is that we need to do. And now it's putting the pieces together, the actual complementary material. And then third, the actual, how do we bring it to practice?
Yes, and remember, it's not that we can conquer everything all at once, but I think if we're just mindful and have intentions of doing something, like I really wanted to make an effort to accomplish this semester, you know, I feel like we don't want to overwhelm, especially for all the people who were at a number one meme. We don't want to add 1,000 things to your plate before school starts. But I think it's great for us to refocus and reconnect, and to see a document that really breaks everything down beautifully and puts and centers us. And thank you for coming to the webinar, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
you very
And
much.
I hope everyone has a great start to their semester, whether that was this week, next week, in coming weeks, and take care.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Great job.